Welcome, to this custom-tailored deep dive. We are looking at something today that is just, well, it's incredibly messy, but absolutely vital.
Oh, totally. We have a massive stack of sources today. We've got news articles, financial reports, polling data, and CNN's Manu Raju actually went on the ground speaking with voters in Michigan.
Right. Because in 2026, the entire mathematical balance of the U.S. Senate basically rests on this one state. It's a proxy war for the soul of the Democratic Party.
It really is. But before we jump into the mechanics of all this chaos, we definitely need to lay out the ground rules for the listener.
Oh, for sure. So just to be completely clear with you up front, the sources we're unpacking today contain some highly politically charged material.
Yeah, very intense stuff. It covers both left-wing and right-wing viewpoints,
Yeah.
especially regarding the Israel-Hamas conflict and U.S. border policies.
Exactly. And we're absolutely not taking sides here. We're not endorsing any of these viewpoints or any of these candidates.
Right. Our mission is just to be your impartial guides.
Yeah.
We're simply conveying the facts and the ideas contained in the original source material.
Just laying it all out so you can see what's happening on the ground. So Michigan. Democratic Senator Gary Peters is retiring.
Yeah, leaving this massive open seat. And remember, the state just flipped for Donald Trump in 2024.
Right. So if the Democrats lose this specific seat, their path to a Senate majority is, mathematically nearly impossible.
It evaporates. And you really can't understand the Democratic infighting without looking at the existential threat from the other side of the aisle. The Republicans have completely consolidated their side.
Yeah, they are all rallied behind Mike Rogers. He's a former U.S. representative, and he's got Donald Trump's official endorsement.
And because the GOP is unified, Rogers is basically just sitting out the primary season entirely. He's watching the Democrats tear each other apart while he stockpiles cash.
Which is a brilliant position to be in. The FEC reports in our sources show he quietly has over $4.2 million in cash on hand.
And that's just his personal campaign. A leading Republican outside Super PAC has already pledged an absolutely staggering $45 million to boost him in the general election.
Wait, $45 million?
Wow. So they can define whoever the Democratic nominee is with negative ads before that nominee even has time to pivot.
It's like watching three people wrestle for the steering wheel of a car, completely ignoring the 18-wheeler, which is Mike Rogers' massive war chest, just barreling straight toward them.
That is a perfect analogy. And that 18-wheeler is driving on a clear road. Whoever survives the Democratic primary is going to emerge just battered, bruised, and completely cash-strapped.
Right. So let's talk about the three people fighting for that steering wheel. The sources describe it as this fascinating millennial showdown.
Yeah, three major candidates, all in their late 30s or early 40s, offering drastically different visions for the party's future.
Let's start with Haley Stevens. She's 42, a U.S. rep from the Detroit suburbs. She's very much the establishment favorite, right?
Absolutely. Her whole focus is heavily on economics, manufacturing, expanding the Affordable Care Act. She plays the traditional institutional game.
Meaning she gladly accepts corporate PTC funding.
Oh, yeah. And she heavily praises current leadership. She recently called Chuck Schumer a great leader. She relies on building alliances with existing power structures.
Okay, so that's the establishment lane, but that creates an opening for someone like Mallory McMorrow, right?
Exactly. McMorrow is 39, a state senator. You probably remember her. She went incredibly viral in 2022 after a floor speech.
Oh, right. That video was everywhere.
It really was. And she is positioning herself as the middle ground option. She says the party needs new leadership, pointing to polling that shows the Democratic Party is currently less popular than Donald Trump.
Wow, that's a tough stat for them. And her viral moment wasn't just, good PR. It completely rewired her fundraising.
Right. She tapped into that modern viral to small dollar pipeline. She raised over $3 million in the first quarter of 2026.
And a huge chunk of that was small donations, wasn't it?
Yeah, 1.6 million of it came from individual donations under $200. She's basically proving you don't need corporate pegs if you can keep the internet's attention.
Oh, wait, hold on. I'm looking at the sources, and it notes she bans corporate donations now, but she absolutely accepted them when she ran for the state Senate.
Right.
Isn't this just a politically convenient evolution to survive a primary? She touts this clean money image, but there's a history there.
Well, her opponents certainly call it hypocrisy. But McMorrow justifies it by saying she had to learn to campaign differently as she moved to a national stage.
So she adapted to what grassroots donors wanted.
Exactly. The survival metrics of a 2026 primary demand a rejection of corporate money if you want that grassroots energy.
Which brings us to the third candidate, Abdul El-Sayed, who would probably say McMorrow is definitely a hypocrite.
Oh, undoubtedly. El-Sayed is 41, a physician, backed by Bernie Sanders.
Yeah.
He is the far-left progressive in this race.
So he wants Medicare for all, wants to abolish ICE, and he has strictly sworn off all corporate PAYC money from the very beginning.
Right. He completely rejects institutionalism.
Right.
He thinks the traditional base is uninspired, and you have to mobilize young progressives who usually stay home.
Okay, so we have clear divides on healthcare and campaign finance. But Mike Rogers' conversations with voters on the ground show there is one massive issue turning this race into a national focal point.
Yeah. The Israel-Hamas conflict. It is actively splintering Michigan's sizable Arab, American, and Jewish voter blocs.
And those blocks are huge. I mean, they're uniquely positioned to tip the national scale, making this issue the ultimate litmus test.
Precisely. And the candidate stances are completely polarized. El-Sayed is fiercely critical. He calls Israel's actions a quote-unquote genocide, calls Netanyahu a war criminal.
He even explicitly stated that killing tens of thousands of people makes the Israeli government as evil as Hamas, didn't he?
He did. And he said he would vote to block offensive weapon sales.
Which is a stark contrast to Haley Stevens.
Night and day. Stevens is firmly pro-Israel. She completely rejects the UN's conclusion of genocide.
And she has massive backing from the pro-Israel lobby, AIPAC, right? Their PAC gave her $340,000 before she even launched her campaign.
Which is a classic strategy to scare off challengers early. And she explicitly said she would not have voted to block weapon sales.
So where does McMorrow sit in all of this?
She's caught in the middle. She believes war crimes were committed, but she actively avoids the genocide label. She calls that a purity test.
And she told AIPAC to stay out of the race, right? She won't take their money now, even though she drafted a position paper for them in the past.
Exactly. And her refusal of that money makes sense when you look at the polling data in the sources.
Right. This poll is fascinating. It shows 64% of Michigan primary voters are less likely to support a candidate who takes AIPAC money.
And 62% say they're less likely to trust a candidate on local issues if they won't stand up to AIPAC.
Wait, if 64% of primary voters are actively turned off by AIPAC money, why is Stevens doubling down so hard? Is she just sacrificing the primary base to play 3D chess for the general election?
That's exactly what she's doing. She's calculating that the intense outrage is concentrated in the activist wing, not the broader coalition of traditional Democrats who care about her economic message.
And she knows she'll need that institutional money to survive against Mike Rogers' $45 million super PAC.
Right, you can't fight an 18-wheeler if you're broke.
Right.
But while she plays the long game, El-Sayed's aggressive stance is driving a highly controversial campaign strategy aimed at Gen Z.
Oh, you mean the Hassan Piker thing? El-Sayed is barnstorming college campuses with him.
Yeah, Hassan Piker is a massive far-left Twitch streamer. El-Sayed is trying to reach young voters where they actually are, bypassing cable news completely.
But there's so much baggage there. Piker has a history of really inflammatory remarks. The sources mention he said America deserved 9/11, which he later called inappropriate satire, and he called Hamas 1,000 times better than Israel.
Right. And Stevens seized on this immediately. She called the association un-American.
Yikes. How did El-Sayed respond?
He fired back, calling her criticism cancel culture. He argues that Democrats alienate people by sitting on high and scolding voters about who they are allowed to talk to.
It's the ultimate risk-reward strategy. El-Sayed is strapping a rocket to his campaign to capture Gen Z, but he risks that rocket exploding and alienating the traditional base.
Which is a very real danger. One voter in the sources explicitly said she just wants to vote for a quote-unquote normal Democrat.
Yeah, she doesn't want the omnicause of the day where progressives bundle every global issue into one campaign. She just wants someone to govern.
And this intense tug-of-war brings us to the ultimate question for the listener. What actually wins elections in the modern political era?
Because despite all these controversies, the primary is a statistical dead heat. Aggregate polling has McMorrow at 23.4%, El-Sayed at 23.2%, and Stevens at 18.3%.
But the craziest part, over a third of voters are still completely undecided.
So it's anyone's game. And El-Sayed is arguing that the whole idea of electability, being the least offensive candidate is just dead.
He says if being inoffensive won elections, Donald Trump wouldn't have won twice. He even calls Senator John Fetterman an ogre who lives in the swamp for abandoning progressive ideals to appeal to the center.
Wow, an ogre who lives in the swamp. That is intense. And you see voters agreeing with him. CNN spoke to Nick Coffin-Callis, a Democratic voter who completely dismisses the center.
Right, he said, I think these swing voters in the center are mythical creatures. I don't think they necessarily exist.
And that, right there, is why you should care about a primary in Michigan. This race is the ultimate laboratory test. We're finding out, in real time, if the political center has actually vanished.
If El-Sayed wins with this strategy, it completely rewrites the national guidebook. It proves the mythical swing voter theory correct.
But if Stevens or McMorrow wins, it shows that the path to victory still requires navigating the middle. So we have an open Senate seat, a unified GOP with millions of dollars, and a Democratic Party fracturing into three millennial identities over campaign finance, Israel, and electability.
It is a massive proxy war. But before we wrap up, we have to talk about this totally under-the-radar policy debate in the sources.
Oh, yes. This is something that isn't making big national headlines yet, but it's going to hit your local elections so soon.
Right. The massive energy and water demands of artificial intelligence data centers.
Tech companies are swarming into communities to build these massive physical hubs for AI.
And they require ridiculous amounts of water for cooling. McMorrow is actually pushing to ban NDAs between tech companies and local governments.
Because right now, these companies quietly lock up municipal water rights before the public even knows a data center is coming to their town, right?
Exactly. She wants transparency. But El-Sayed is approaching it by demanding binding terms of engagement. He wants to force these centers to protect local water.
Right, he's pushing for closed-loop cooling systems. Basically, instead of constantly draining the local municipal supply and evaporating it, a closed-loop system acts like a car radiator. It just recirculates the same water over and over.
Which is a huge deal. It highlights that the internet isn't just some abstract cloud. It has a massive physical footprint.
Totally. So consider this. As global technological arms races like AI require massive physical infrastructure, how long until the physical footprint of the internet becomes the next explosive wedge issue in your own local elections?
It's definitely coming. You might not care about the cloud, but you care when a massive data center threatens your town's water supply.
Exactly. It's a huge thing to mull over. Well, we've mapped out the stakes of this wild Michigan primary, and we'll see which strategy actually wins out. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the narratives, and we'll catch you next time.